In this video, let's see how can you get the Google or GitHub or any other login in your website. See, what happens is when you build application, of course, you want to secure it. And one way to secure it is through the login forms. And normally what you do is when you say you are allowing your user to log in so that we can provide them the resource, you have to verify the username password from the database. And we have done that before. Right? Now what I'm doing is, let's say you build an application and then with the username password, you also want an option of someone can log in through their Google account or their GitHub account. It will be easier for users to log in. And most of the time when I want to access any resource or any web application, I prefer to log in through Google. Now Google already knows a lot about me, right? They have all my information and I can use that. And they already have my username password. So what if this application can ask Google, hey, this person is claiming to be Naveen. Can you just confirm that he's Naveen? So that's how you basically verify. And to achieve that, what you can do is on your page, you can have a Google login or GitHub login option. And to do that, we'll build a very simple project. Let's not work with the older projects. Let's create a small project with a small resource. And let's see how do you provide the Google or the GitHub access to it. So the first thing I will do is I will create a new project, and to do that I will go to start.spring.io. If you have ultimate version of IntelliJ IDEA or Spring or STS, you can use that. So here I want to create a project, and I will say make sure that this is Maven, a Java project. And the Spring Boot version latest is 3.3.2. Depending upon when you are watching this, you can just change it. And the group ID I will mention is com.telusko. The project name I will make sure has OAuth2. Now, why it is OAuth2? Because if you want to provide this option of using someone else's authorization server to verify, we can use a protocol called OAuth. And the version is OAuth2. So we'll use that. So we'll say Spring OAuth2 demo. And the packaging will be jar. The Java version 21 on this machine. Let's add dependency. So when you say OAuth, you can actually create your own OAuth2 server using Spring. But since we want to use some other services like Google or GitHub, we'll use a client there. But before we add that, we also have to make sure that we also get Spring Web and the OAuth2 client. Now, of course, you might be saying we also need a Spring security, right? Because it's a login thing. The thing is, the OAuth2 client itself will give you all the Spring security dependencies. So we just need the Spring Web and OAuth2 client, and click on generate. This will give you a project which you have to unzip it and open your IDE. So unzipping done. Let me go back to my IDE. This is the earlier project which we were doing for JWT. Will not touch it. I will click on open, and let's open this new project. Click on open. And okay, so first of all, I will just stop this server. Or maybe we'll just click on new window. Disconnect. Okay, sometime, when you disconnect or terminate, it will not free up the port. I think it's with terminate. So let's see, I hope the port number 8080 is available, otherwise we'll change it. So the first thing I want to verify if this is working. So I will just run this application to see what goes wrong. We have not done the mapping yet, no resource created. Let's run this and see what goes wrong. The moment you run this, it will give you some errors. Okay, first of all, it says the 8080 port number is busy. Okay, that's the mistake, right? So for the older one, I should have stopped it. Do I have the option? No, it's closed. Okay, so what I can do is either I restart my machine. That's the solution I found. If you have other solution, let me know. I can just change the port number. I will say server.port equal to 8080, or maybe I will say 8000. Let's use port number 8000. Let's run this, and this time it should not give you this error of 8080 busy because we're using a different port number. Let's see. Okay, so it says Tomcat started at port number 8000. I'm happy. Okay, now let's create some resource. In fact, even before you go for the resource, let me just go to the page of, okay, not this port number. This was the earlier project. It's 8000, enter. And it is giving you a login form. Go back to Spring Security, right? When you add Spring Security modules, it will give the login form, right? But hey, I don't want a login form. I want buttons here for the Google or GitHub. I don't have it. And even if you pass the username password, you don't know the username and password, right? Or maybe you will get it in your console, but if you scroll, you don't even have a password here. Okay, no problem. What I will do is I will create a simple resource which I want to access. So first of all, which resource I want to access, I will create a class, and this will be my hello controller, and I will make this as a REST client. So I will say REST controller. I mean, not a client, REST controller. And let's create a method which will do something. So I will say public string. I know we are using the same method every time, but it works, right? And here I will say this is get mapping. This will be mapping for the homepage request. Or maybe I can specify some URL, or maybe homepage works. And here I will say return, welcome to Telusko. I'll give a comma and I will say telusko.com. No harm in product marketing. Okay, what do you call this? There's a word for this, right? When you pitch in a product inside the script. I forgot what it's called. Doesn't matter. Okay, come back. So we are saying telusko.com and this should work. So let's relaunch it. And actually it will not work. The reason being, it will still ask you for the login form, right? And we don't want a login form. So if I go back and hit the home page, it will again give you login form. Now, how do you stop default configuration? So one way to do that is you have to do the Spring config, okay? And still, if you want to see the home page, what I will do is I will just go back to my POM file and I can disable it. So I can disable the Spring OAuth2 client. So what it will do is it will also disable the Spring security configuration. So let's go back to the browser and say refresh or not for the login form. I will say enter. Okay, still giving me login form. Oh, I forgot to do one important thing. You have to reload your Maven before you do that. Let's restart. Go back to the browser. I don't want a login form now. Enter. Okay, it's not ready yet. So you can see it says welcome to telusko.com. So we are happy. And now let's enable it. Again, let's reload the Maven changes. I want to pass the security. So we have done that before. So if you want to pass the default security, what you can do is you can create your own config file. And I will name this as security config, and on top of this you will say this is configuration and also enable web security, and then you have to just change one method. Basically you have to create one bean, and I want a bean of security filter chain. So I'll say public. I want the method which will change the behavior of security filter chain. I will have a default name, security filter chain, and this should take an object of HTTP security. I will say HTTP. This might throw an exception, the method I'm going to do. So I want to basically return HTTP.build. So this build will return the object of security filter chain, and this might throw an exception. So I will just say add throws exception. Okay. Now, if you want to change the configuration, in fact, we have done this before, right? What you have to basically do is with the object of HTTP, you have to add certain things. In the previous sections, we have talked about how do you disable the CSRF, how do you work with a custom login, authentication, but this time we don't want to do all those stuff. We just want a Google login, right? So what you can do is you can use HTTP dot. First of all, I want to make sure that all the requests should be authenticated. So I will say authorize request. If you don't do this, it will bypass security and you will be able to access resource. I don't want to bypass security. I want to restrict it. So I will say auth dot any request will be authenticated. By default is permit, but I want to make it authenticated. Now by doing this, it will restrict you to access any resource. But with the restriction, I also want to give them the access of login through Google. So I will say HTTP dot, or maybe I can simply use the builder pattern. I will just enter this, and instead of having a semicolon here. So now we'll say dot, and there's an option of OAuth2, and we have to specify we are going for a login, and login with the customizer dot with defaults. And that's it. It's so simple, right? Now, by doing this, you are making sure that you are specifying that, hey, I want to use OAuth2 for the login, and this should work, and it will not. You know why? Because we are saying OAuth2 login, right? But in this world, Google is not the only OAuth provider. There are a lot of different servers using which you can do that. Maybe you can create your own servers. How? I mean, nowhere we are specifying that we have to use Google login. And that's what it is complaining about. If you say it says parameters 0 of method, set filter chain, blah, 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 web security configuration required, the OAuth2 registration. So that is not found. So the repository is not there. So that means we have to pass which login you want to go for. Okay. And that you can do in the configuration. So you can go to your application properties, and this is where you can mention those properties. So what are the properties? Of course, you don't have to by heart this. You can just get it from Google. So you can say spring.security. We want to work with OAuth2, and we are specifying the clients here, and we have to do the registration. That's what it was saying in the console. And then we have to specify which server we are using. So we are using Google here. So for GitHub, it will change to GitHub. Dot, and you have to specify two things. One is the client ID, and then you have to specify the client secret as well. So client ID is something which people can see, but client secret is only developers can see, or people who are building this. So I want the same thing, but with the client secret. So I will just copy paste here, and I will say client secret. This is like more like a password, or maybe you can think about username password if that makes sense. But the question is, from where exactly I will get this client ID and client secret? Now, these are the steps you have to do. So what I will do is I will go back to my browser. So search for Google Cloud Console and go to this website, and this is where you can get it. So if you see there's an option of API and services. If you click here, I want to create a new credential. So this is the basically API services from Google Cloud. and you need a developer account for that. So make sure that in your personal account, you have a developer account. Go to credentials. And if you don't have a consent screen by default, it will give you some issues. So make sure that if you're doing this for the first time, it will give you a consent screen. Just make sure that you complete it. It's a form which you have to complete where you specify your app and stuff. So do that. And then you will see this option. Otherwise, click on, if it is already there, you can click on credentials and click on create credentials. And then we are creating a OAuth client ID. Click on this. Now this will ask you for the application type. Now you can build, you can get your client ID for web application, for the Android, for the Chrome extension, iOS, and blah, blah, blah. There are so many options here. I want to go for the web application, so I will choose that. Next, I want to specify the name. I will say test app, if that works. Yeah, test app. And then we have to specify the authorized redirect URL or URI. And here, you have to mention http://localhost:8080. This is your browser name or the whatever URL you have. Oh, sorry, not 8080, it is 8000 slash. So I have to say login slash OAuth2 slash code slash Google. Now again, you don't have to buy this. You can also get it from Google if you search. And then you have to click on create. So if you have your website already deployed, you can use that URL instead of the localhost:8000. Now, once you do that, it will give you two things. It will give you client ID and it will give you client secret. So I will just copy this and put it somewhere. So I will say client ID is this, and then I have to specify the client secret, and that is this. So you can just copy this and make sure that you don't share this with anyone. You can see that on the screen is because once the session gets over, I will delete those two things. I will delete this particular API. Okay, and now I can use these two things. So I can just copy this client ID and go back to your IDE, not the database, IDE, and paste the client ID. Then you have to specify the secret, which is here. I'll just copy this and paste it here. That's it. These are the two things you have to specify. And once you do that, let's restart the application and hopefully this will work this time. It should not give you those error. So you can see there is no error, but let's verify if this is working. So let's go back to our browser and localhost 8080. I will say enter, and you can see it is giving the option of login directly. Normally it should give you an option of, there should be a button. Okay, not 8080. Okay, there should be a button of Google and then it should give you this. I'm not sure why it is directly going this. Maybe I will just add one more so that, when you have your own UI, you can customize the way you want. But yeah, it gives you a button, and then when you click on it, and let me know if it is happening with you as well in the comments. And you can choose your email account and you can log in now. Example, if I choose my personal email account, it will say, okay, I want to give the access, continue. And now I'm logged in, and you can see we got welcome to Telusko.com. Now I don't have to log in again. Every time I go this, it will use that token given by Google, and it will log in. Okay. So that's one. This is for the Google. What about GitHub? Same thing for the GitHub also. Let's copy these two things and paste. The only change you have to make here is GitHub and GitHub. Okay. Now this client ID and secret key will not work. We have to change this as well. Okay. Now from where you will get this, of course, the way we got it from Google, there should be option of GitHub as well. So if I go to GitHub, this is my repository. If you're not following yet, do that. And if I go back, I have to log into my GitHub. Let's do that. So basically, I've also enabled the two-factor authentication. I can use authorization app, or I can use a passkey from my Mac. Okay, I'm logged in. Okay, once you're logged in, you can just go to this and click on settings. And once you come on this page, just scroll down at the last, not this much last, click on the developer's setting. And you can see there's an option of OAuth apps. Already have one. Maybe you will see an option of there's no apps available. You can click on new OAuth app and give a name. I will again go for test app. The home URL I'll mention is this. I don't want to specify any description, but URL, the callback URL is important. The same way we have done it for the Google, we'll do it here. So http://localhost:8000/login/ okay, it's already giving me option here. I'll just copy this. So this is the same thing, right? The only thing is in Google, it was Google. It is now GitHub here. And click on register. That's it. You got your details. Now where you will find the client ID? Oh, that's very easy. We got the client ID here. I will just copy this and paste it in here. And the secret. Okay, so secret, how will you get it? Now you can see it is not showing anything. So I will click on generate a new client secret. And I got it here and I'll paste it here. That's it. These are the two things you have to mention, the client ID and the client secret. By doing those things, let's restart the application and let's go back to the browser. Again, the same page, enter. Okay, now you can see we got two options, the Google login or GitHub login. We tried for Google, let's try for GitHub now. Click on this. It says, since I'm already logged in on GitHub, it says authorize Navin Reddy. Yes, click on this. And I'm logged in. And now it says welcome to Telusko. So it's so easy to get the logins, right? And yeah, that's how basically you log in through your OAuth2 clients. You can use Google, you can use GitHub, maybe Facebook, try it out different platforms. And let me know in the comments what other platforms you have used. And also if you can share how you did it in the comments, it will be helpful for others. So that's it from this video where we have seen how do we use OAuth2 client. In fact, you can also create your own OAuth2 servers. In future, maybe I will make videos on that. Not in plan as of now, but let me know. I will try to creating your own OAuth2 servers. So that's it from this video. So I hope you enjoyed the entire series on Spring Security. And this is kind of the end of Spring Security at this point. And see you in the upcoming sessions or upcoming videos. Bye-bye.